So have you ever walked away from a conversation thinking, man, that did not go how I thought it would go? Or I wish I would have said or done something differently. Well, that's happened to me a lot, and I'm here to tell you that's normal and we can change it. And I'm going to tell you how. Today, I'm going to give you 3 tools to help you communicate better to get what you want and need. Well, hello, and welcome back to another episode of I'm Not Triggered, the podcast. I'm your host, Adrian Purchase, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today. Today, we're going to talk about how to communicate better and why that's important for getting what we need and what we want. But first, I got to tell you, I'm not a professional therapist of any sort. I don't have any certifications. I'm a combat veteran, and I've done a lot of different therapeutic modalities, and Dialectical Behavior Therapy has been the game-changing therapy that worked for me. So my hope is that while I'm not a certified professional, I am hopeful to help you learn to navigate the intricate and complex parts of your life with some of the skills that I've learned. If you like what I'm doing on the channel, go ahead and like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you, and you can always shoot me an email and check out my SUBSTACK. There's lots of information there. Thanks so much for joining me. Let's get to it. So have you ever walked away from a conversation thinking, man, that did not go how I thought it would go? Or I wish I would have said or done something differently. Well, that's happened to me a lot, and I'm here to tell you that's normal, and we can change it. And I'm going to tell you how. Today, I'm going to give you 3 tools to help you communicate better to get what you want and need. So for those of us managing trauma, PTSD, significant mental health concerns, or maybe you have a loved one that suffers from these things, communication can really feel like you're pulling nails, right? Or that you are trying to defuse a bomb while you're blindfolded without any training. And to be fair, I don't know that we actually in society, in our American society, get a lot of training in terms of how to properly and appropriately communicate our thoughts, our feelings, our wants, and our needs in a way that is contextually effective, right? So today, that's what we're going to talk about. Now, these 3 tools transformed my life because they transformed my relationships. And that is the key to transforming your life. When I was deep in my PTSD and my borderline personality disorder wasn't diagnosed and medicated, and I hadn't gone through any of the DBT therapy, I didn't just struggle with a lot of the familiar symptoms of PTSD, hypervigilance, anxiety, depression, inability to sleep, crankiness, anger, right? Immediate explosions or implosions, suicide ideality, self-harm. My life was a mess. I was a mess inside. I would take a simple comment that somebody would say, and it would become so personal and usually deeply hurtful. I struggled to have a single conversation without it going sideways or me interpreting some part of that as rejection, abandonment, or shame. My brain was constantly scanning for threats. It still does a little bit, but it's better. And that's called hypervigilance, which I've talked about in depth in my Substack, and I'll link that here. So with hypervigilance, I would be scanning body language, the tone of voice, what kind of word choice. And there was always typically something about what somebody said or did that I would interpret and take it very personally in a negative context. And here's what I wish someone would have told me that I'm going to tell you. When you have trauma doesn't affect just how we feel and how we navigate our lives. It really rewires how we communicate with other people. When we're hypervigilant, we're not just watching for physical signs of threats, right? We're reading, whether we want to or not, or notice it or not. We are reading the inflection of tone. We are reading how someone is standing. We are reading what their face and their body language is saying versus their words. I'm really good at this. People with BPD, actually, it's been shown that people with BPD are incredibly gifted at understanding human emotion in other people. Not always in ourselves, but we're usually right about what somebody else is feeling, or we're like in the ballpark, right? And that's because of training. Traumatic training has given us this gift. But if we're scanning every single expression, every tone change, every shift in body movement, we're just waiting to be hurt, rejected, criticized. And the research backs this up. Studies show that people with PTSD often struggle with emotion regulation, which is essentially what borderline personality disorder is. But when you have PTSD, you have emotion dysregulation anyway, without actually maybe having borderline personality disorder. And off topic, that's what makes diagnosing BPD specifically so difficult if you have PTSD. Because if you have BPD, you don't get you're not born with it. BPD is something that is given to you from your environment and your caretakers when you're young. And that's just the way that it is, right? So PTSD is something that happens to us, but it's not typically, it's not always just from childhood. It could be from anything, right? It could be your house fucking burned down in a fire. That's horribly traumatic. If that's happened to you, anyone you know, that is a definite PTSD sort of trigger, even if you had no trauma before that, right? So we have to think about PTSD in a way that is larger than just in this sort of small scope. Well, I didn't go to war, or I haven't been in, like a school shooting or something like really, really terrible. It's all contextual and subjective within your life. We all have different thresholds for different experiences, and negative, impactful experiences, those can really affect us. And when we're emotionally dysregulated and in distress, our wise mind goes offline. It's like, peace out. I'm not needed here. You seem to have it, emotions. The emotions become so big when we're amped up that there's no space for wise mind and there's no space for logic. It's all emotion when we have this sort of trigger happen inside. And when you're trying to communicate something that's important to you and you're all emotional, chances are that conversation won't really be a communication. It will kind of just mostly be us being very aggressive, thinking we're being assertive, right? And the cost here is enormous. I've watched my own very poor communication damage a lot of relationships that I deeply cherished. So I've had to sit in the aftermath of the hurt and the pain that my communication has caused. And that can be difficult. And I didn't mean to hurt anyone. It wasn't my intention to hurt, right? But I don't know that I really stopped to think about my intention of the conversation that I wanted to have before having it. I just wanted to be heard. And that's not communicating. Communication is a discussion, is a discourse. There could be disagreements in communication. That's okay. That's still communicating. And when we try to communicate from a place of fear, or emotion, and instead of attention and purposefulness, we're not really communicating effectively. So let me paint a picture for you, a personal picture. There was a period where most conversations with my wife felt like I was walking through a minefield. I'm sure she felt the same. My PTSD had me so reactive that I would interpret her asking about dinner plans as a criticism of my inability to plan ahead. That wasn't what she was saying at all. She's asking about dinner. And so it started as simple miscommunication, slowly became a pattern. And eventually she just kind of stopped sharing things with me because she didn't ever know which version of me or my PTSD or BPD that she was going to get. So then I would feel more isolated. I would feel abandoned, rejected, not important. And that, of course, pushed her further away from me and me further away from her. And this was just a terrible cycle. And if you're trauma survival, it's probably a cycle that you know too well. The very fear of abandonment that drives us in ways that actually pushes people away. It's not connecting us in a way that we probably want and need. And the guilt, the shame of these kinds of interactions, God, that's crushing. It's crushing. I know it is. A lot of my suicidality and self-harm urges and follow-throughs typically were triggered by an interaction with somebody I cared about that I perceived had gone poorly, and that I fucked up. That it was my fault that I hurt them, did the thing, didn't do the thing, said the thing, didn't say the thing. It would send me down the darkest path because I don't actually want to hurt people. That's not who I am. And so when I would do that in conversation on accident, not understanding how that happened, that was hard. That was really hard to figure out and tease apart and try to deal with. And I've written about guilt on my Substack, and I'll put those links here or down below. And the thing about guilt is it turns into shame when we just let it fester. And it just sits in us like a ton of bricks collapsing my chest, making it hard to breathe or have a relationship. And I felt so lonely. And I was always afraid of hurting someone again in conversation. So I kind of stopped talking to a lot of people, unless there were people that didn't seem to push me away when I had a triggering event or big emotions, or if I was in distress and not handling it well. And that, again, is very lonely and very isolating. But what are you supposed to do when you don't know how to communicate and you just kind of always feel like an asshole? You know you're not an asshole, but now you feel like an asshole and you're convinced everyone else thinks you're an asshole. That is hard to deal with. It's hard to get out of. It's hard to understand how we got to that place. And I wanted to blame the other people for thinking poorly about me, instead of me saying, man, I think there might be something I could do differently, more effectively in this situation. And most communication advice just assumes that we're starting from a place of a regulated nervous system, right? Like, we're going to go into this conversation because we had 9 hours of sleep and we had our coffee and we went for that walk and it's been a good day and I got good food in my tummy and all my bills are paid and I don't have a care in the world because my life is great. But that's not real life. That's not real life for me. I doubt that it is for you. If it is, my God, congratulations. Let me know how you did that. But for most of us, our life is, man, I only got 6 hours of sleep because I stayed up too late trying to finish the thing I was working on because I'm on a deadline. And then I woke up in the middle of the night because my dog, threw up and puked and I had to clean it up because who wants to wake up to that in the morning? And then I was just up, like, that's life. And then trying to have a conversation when you're sleep deprived, hungry, angry, lonely. That's an acronym that we have in 12-step called HALT, HALT. And then like most communication advice is like, just use I statements. Okay. How about this? I don't like it when you do this, right? Like, that's not what they mean. And then they say stuff like, be assertive, but not aggressive. What's the fucking difference? Right? But when your brain is convinced that any conflict equals mortal damage, the end of a relationship, possibly the end of your life, like when you're deep in the shit, that's where your brain goes. The tips about good communication, right, feel, I don't know, just about as useful as someone telling me when I'm having a panic attack, just calm down and breathe. Right? So this is where DBT comes in. Remember those 3 tools I promised you? Here they are, okay? Now, they're not just communication tools, though. These are tools that you can use in so many different areas of your life. And you'll see what I mean in just a little bit. These 3 tools are specifically designed and were developed for those of us, like me, who have very big emotions, whose emotions run high, whose emotions get really hot very quickly, whose emotions dissipate very quickly. That's emotion dysregulation. Apparently, when you have emotion regulation, Emotion regulation is essentially being where you're at with what's going on. It's knowing that there may be a really terrible thing that's happening, or I'm in a really boring meeting, or I got to do a thing I don't want to do, and not allowing the emotions that I have about those things to make the decisions about how I interact in those situations. And if you have PTSD, bipolar, BPD, chronic anxiety, depression, any of these things, our past experiences have taught us that relationships themselves are dangerous. And our nervous system needs extra support to stay regulated, especially in difficult conversation. It takes extra energy for me to stay emotionally regulated now. I mean, it takes less energy than it did a year ago, for sure, because I've practiced the skills, but it still takes doing it and practicing the skills to actually reap the results. So the first tool is the stop skill, right? And the stop skill is very simple. So I'm going to start off this skill with a quick example. Okay, so let's say Gina, our friend Gina, she checks her watch again, and now her friend Tina, who is supposed to meet her 20 minutes ago, is 20 minutes late, and she hasn't heard from Tina. So when Tina finally arrives with an apologetic but familiar smile on her face, Gina is pretty upset by this point because she'd been waiting a while, and they had a plan, right? And so Gina's first thought is, man, she does not respect me at all. She's always late. For someone with trauma history, like me, like Gina, maybe like you, this moment is so much bigger than it maybe seems on the surface. The late arrival, it wasn't just inconvenient, right, for Gina, okay? But it's very triggering for her. And it's triggering for Gina because this harkens back to all of the times in her past when people said they would show up at a certain time but didn't. They let her down. People have been unreliable. She has learned to depend upon herself mostly. So when she finally trusts somebody like her friend Tina to do something simple like show up on time to our meetings, well, this is where the stop skill comes in handy so Gina doesn't lose her shit. So we literally stop. The skill to stop, which is an acronym like most all DBT skills. And they're not all great, but I didn't come up with them, okay? So don't take it up with me. Now, the stop skill, the S is just for stop. We just stop exactly where we're at, what we're doing, and we take a minute to take in the facts of the situation happening around us. Tina's late again, and Gina's upset about it. So Gina literally stops moving, and she doesn't make a snarky comment about her irritation. Instead, she does the T, which is take a step back. So here, I mean, maybe physically, literally, you could take a step back. But in our situation, Gina's been waiting at a restaurant or a coffee shop for a while. She could take a mental step back from the situation to try to give herself more space and give herself some time for her emotions to kind of calm down. And then she can observe, that's the O. She simply observes what's happening around her, within her. Maybe her palms are sweaty. Maybe her heart's racing because she's upset, she's angry, she's irritated. And P, right, is proceed mindfully. I know that's 2 words. So here, Gina can then choose how she responds instead of just allowing her emotions to react to the situation and burn this bridge. So instead of saying something like, seriously, again, do you even care about my time or what I have going on in my own life? Right? She doesn't have to say that. She could say something like, hey, I've been sitting here for 20 minutes. I didn't hear from you. This has happened repeatedly a few times now. And when you're late, I feel as though my time, the time we spend together, is not important, nor do I feel like it is a priority. And that's hurtful to me. Can we talk about what we can do differently so that we can meet at the scheduled and agreed time? That's a much different opening to a conversation than just slewing assumptions, allegations, and your emotions everywhere, right? And it took me a long time to understand that being calm when conversing is much more likely to get you heard rather than yelling and being aggressive when you're not heard, and so you get louder. So the stop skill, it really gives us a crucial pause to take back our own power from an emotion. It gives us time between what triggered us and how we react or respond to it. Now, the second tool is another acronym, and it's a long one, but we're going to go through it step by step, and I'll have links in the description below in case you want a worksheet for your own conversations utilizing this Dear Man example. Dear Man, D-E-A-R, right? M-A-N. We're going to use another example here. Let's say Sean comes home after working overtime. Again, he's tired. He's grumpy. The dishes have been sitting in the sink for 3 days. And his partner has the responsibility of doing the dishes. That's what they agreed on. But he's noticed his partner hasn't been doing the dishes as they agreed. So Sean's feeling really frustrated and overwhelmed because as soon as he gets home from a long day of work, now he has to look at this mess of a kitchen. And in the past, this would have led to maybe an argument, probably with his partner, a passive aggressive comment. But instead, Sean's going to use this skill called Dear Man. And with the D here, we just describe objectively. So here would maybe be something like, hey, the dishes have been in the sink for 3 days. Okay? Those are facts. You're not accusing anyone. And then with E, we are going to express our feelings about the situation. Maybe Sean will say something like, when I get home from work, I feel extremely overwhelmed when our shared space is cluttered, especially after the long days at work. And then for A, Sean can assert what it is he's asking for here very clearly. He'll say something like, I need us to share the responsibility for keeping our kitchen clean. With R, Sean can reinforce the positive benefits for the other person, his partner, in this example, right? Which here would be, when we both contribute to the cleanliness of our home, I feel more relaxed and I'm in a better mood and I'm much more willing to spend time together. For M, we're going to mindfully stay focused on the topic at hand. A lot of times when we have emotions driving conversations, we then bring up how this other the partner maybe was also supposed to clean the bathroom and do the grocery shopping. And 2 weeks ago, they did the thing with the kids. No. We're here to talk about the fact that I feel overwhelmed when your part of the bargain isn't held up. Because then I feel like I have to pick up that end of the deal and I'm already tired. We had a deal. So we stay focused. We don't bring up other transgressions or resentments or irritations. We just stick to the one thing, which is why this is why this Dear Man thing is so helpful. It forces you to use your wise mind to write out a script. You literally write it out. You don't have to bring it with you when you go, but then you have it out. And you know that it's most likely a much more effective way of having this conversation than if you didn't use it, right? You have nothing to lose by not doing this at all, You have nothing to lose by trying it. And then we appear confident. Now, this you don't have to write down, but we don't keep our head down and, we appear confident and we take ourselves seriously. We don't apologize for inconveniencing somebody. And then we negotiate when it's appropriate or necessary, right? So if, Sean's partner is like, I know it's been 3 days and I'm sorry, I had this family thing happen. You haven't been here. I haven't had a chance to really talk to you about it, but my mom's been really sick. That's totally different than if maybe, Sean came home, the dishes had been in the sink for 3 days and the partner was just sitting there playing video games all day. That is a much different situation, right? And so when we use this Dear Man, it takes out the assumptions. Sean did not assume that his partner was intentionally leaving the kitchen messy. That didn't come up at all. He just simply said, hey, it's been 3 days and I've noticed the dishes aren't done. What's up? Right? It turns out, shit, your mom is sick? Why didn't you tell me? If we communicate in a way that is not aggressive, it really does. I know it's scary. I do feel scared still, trying to have important conversations with my wife, I do use this Dear Man. I use it religiously. And I know that for me, it's much easier to understand what it is I actually need and want before going into a conversation if I can use my wise mind to tell me so, right? And Dear Man works because it gives us this roadmap when our emotions are high or they get high during a conversation, which usually happens with harder conversations. So if you go into a conversation primed, right, you've gotten enough sleep, you had a meal, you went for a walk, you talked to a friend today, like you go into a conversation with more energy and more positivity within you, that conversation is likely to go better. Dear Man is especially powerful for those of us that either shut down during a difficult conversation or just kind of go all in with the boulder and bull in a china shop. Here's all of my thoughts and feelings and information. So that takes us to tool number 3. And tool number 3 is validation. It sounds so simple, and yet there are so many of us that struggle with this skill of validation, me included. And here's something I learned the hard way. One of the many things I learned the hard way. Most communication problems aren't actually about whatever the issue is that we're talking about. Most communication problems are about whether we feel heard and understood. So validation is the skill that creates a sense of safety for all of us. Another example, Terry vents to her friend and says, my boss criticized my project again, and I feel like nothing I do is good enough. Instead of her friend just jumping to advice like, just find a new job, maybe saying something like, at least you have a job, those are not helpful comments. We don't really think about it, right? Like, they're not helpful comments. So something more effective is from validation. And that would be something like, her friend is paying attention to what Terry is saying. She's not on her phone. She's not looking at the menu. She's not distracted by what's happening with the cat. She's like we are right now. She's paying attention. And then because she's paying attention, her friend is able to reflect back accurately to Terry what she's heard. So she says something like, I hear that you're feeling discouraged because your work keeps getting criticized by your boss. And then maybe Terry's friend could say something, reading between the lines, which is some conversation is sometimes about that, about what's not said, right? So here's an opportunity for Terry's friend to say something like, that must feel really disheartening after putting in so much effort. And then we keep going. We can validate in terms of context or history for this person. So Terry's friend, could say something like, they've been friends for a long time. So she could say something like, given how hard you've worked to build confidence in your abilities at your job, I can totally understand why this feels so hard. And then we normalize. Normalizing is great. Everyone could do this. Everyone should do this. We can normalize things. So Terry's friend could say something like, anyone who's being criticized at work for their work would feel the same way. I would feel that way. And you probably would. So validation doesn't mean agreement. It doesn't mean approval. It means we're acknowledging someone else's emotional experience, someone else's emotional response, and telling them that it makes sense given the situation. Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking. What if they don't deserve validation? What if they're being unreasonable? That's a great question. We don't validate the invalid. Validation isn't about someone deserving it. It's about creating the conditions where real, actual communication can take place in a safe and responsive manner. Validation is about disagreeing with someone's views and still being respectful and understanding why they have those views. I have different views than you on certain things. 100% I know that's true because we're different people, right? But that does not make either of our experiences or our beliefs invalid. It just means they're different. And I want to pause for a second and talk about invalidation because we don't talk about either validation or invalidation enough, but invalidation is actually really traumatic if it happens chronically over a long period of time. And this is really hard. Invalidation is extremely hard for trauma survivors who desperately need reciprocal understanding, and we need to feel seen, we need to feel heard. But we have to remember that we can only control ourselves, right? We cannot control how someone else is going to respond or react to us or anything else. And if you're in a relationship with someone who does not validate you, doesn't do the things we just talked about, that's good information to have, right? If we're trying to change the kinds of relationships that we are in, that means we're gonna have to take an assessment of where the relationships are at that we're in. And if we still want that relationship, for me, I have people in my life who generally validate my thoughts, my feelings, my beliefs. My wife, God, I love her very much, but she does love to challenge some of my thoughts and beliefs, but she doesn't do it in a way that is invalidating. It's often something like, given the fact that you moved around so much as a child, of course it's difficult for you to want to travel far away from home, for you specifically. Like, I don't actually like to travel. I really prefer to be right here. This is it. This is where I like to be, right here in my studio all day, every day for the rest of my life. And I also know that's not healthy, right? I have to get out and I have to travel. But my wife doesn't go about this in a way that's aggressive. She's very loving and very kind about it, and is like, remember how going out and meeting with your friends will make you feel better. Like, that is challenging me and yet still validating me and being very loving and kind about it, right? So we can validate and also still be very genuinely honest and kind about what could be done differently. If Terry is constantly complaining about her boss, criticizing her work for like a year and a half, and I'm tired of hearing Terry complain, my validation might change. I might say something like, it's been like 18 months. Like, you started this project, I think it was like 18 months ago, and your boss has kind of been a jerk the whole time. And now I can see like why you feel the way you do. And at some point, I think you might have to make a decision, right? So we can validate while also having boundaries. Now, one caveat here, right? I will say this. If you're in full fight or flight mode and you have had a triggering event and your physiology is literally like heightened, these tools aren't going to work. These are not the 3 tools. I mean, the stop skill for sure would help here, but now is not the time to dear man or try to validate anything. Now is the time to go to our other skills of getting emotionally regulated, getting out of distress and into a more regulated spot, right? And those are separate skills that we'll go over in different videos. I just haven't gotten there yet. Our first job before going into any conversation is to ensure that you are as emotionally regulated as you can be, which can be hard sometimes, and that you are being the most kind version of you that you would want present in that conversation talking to you. And so just to wrap all this stuff up about communication, let's do a really fun personal example. Let's talk about how it used to be when my wife and I would talk about our budget. I know, money and communication, right? These go hand in hand. So let me share with you first how this conversation might have looked historically and how it would have destroyed my evening, my day with my wife. So money conversations used to trigger every insecurity that I had. Insecurities about worth, value, control, power, perception, perfection, all of those things, competence. But DBT tools helped me get much better at having conversations about money with my wife. And we're at the point now where we can kind of laugh during these conversations, even if we're like a little stressed out, right? Because that's the relationship we've built outside of that context. So to wrap all this up in one example, the stop skill, dear man, validation, we'll do one more example. In this example here, let's say Miguel notices his partner's saddened and maybe anxious look on his face when they're going through their finances and looking at maybe some bills. So instead of Miguel maybe getting defensive or just shutting down completely, he could do the stop skill first. He notices what he's feeling. So he notices that maybe his chest is tightening. Takes a few deep breaths. Then he can use Dear Man in this situation. Now, he didn't necessarily write this down, right? But for sake of example, we're going to run through this. So maybe he says something like, I notice you look worried about our finances. I'm also feeling anxious about our budget, especially since we had to have the car repaired last month. So I need us to make a plan so that I don't feel overwhelmed financially. And there's validation. Now, this would go both ways, right? Each partner would validate the other, which is what's supposed to happen here. So maybe his partner will respond and say something like, I can see why you would feel overwhelmed financially. You know, we did have the car breakdown. It was a big unexpected expense. I'm worried too, but I think we can probably figure this out together. Let's sit down and come up with a plan, right? And so the result of that is a much different outcome than a fight that just leaves both people feeling misunderstood, unimportant, and very confused, probably. And that problem then just kind of, the resentment from an interaction like that grows. Now, I still find my brain creating elaborate stories, elaborate narratives about what people really mean when they pause before answering, right? My mind still races during difficult conversations. But the difference now is awareness. I notice these patterns and I have tools to redirect myself toward connection instead of destruction. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, well, this sounds great in theory, but my situation is way more complicated. I get it. Some relationships are too damaged or too toxic for these tools alone. Some people won't meet you halfway, no matter how skillfully you communicate. But here's what I know for sure. Learning to communicate effectively is never wasted effort. Even if it doesn't save every relationship in your life, it will save the relationship you have with yourself, which is the most important one. It will help you show up as the person you are, the person you want to be, instead of allowing your emotions to take the wheel or shutting down entirely and not getting what you need and want. So that's all I have for you today. I hope that you found it helpful and useful. And if you did, I'd love to know. If you didn't, I'd also like to know, but you have to be nice about it. Thanks so much for joining me today. Until next time, take good care of yourself.